Here's an example of a business process. One of the first things to realize is that it is a combination of pathways through the process. These are simple yes, no binary decisions. And depending on which way the work flows through those decisions, there are three ways through the process. So here's the work arriving, and it can follow one of three paths. If it follows the yes decision, it goes through there. If it follows the no decision and the yes decision here, it goes through that path. And finally, if it follows the no decision and no, it ends up down here. This is an example of scrap, where the process doesn't actually finish. So there's three ways through that process. What we can do using a modeling tool is analyze the particular volumes and percentages of the work flowing. So we'll tell you that 60% of the volume coming through the beginning of the process follows path 1, and its cost is $100, an activity cost, every time a unit of work flows through path 1. We'll tell you that 30% of the volume flows through path 2 and costs $200, so clearly this is a more expensive pathway. And the final 10% of the volume, which is going through scrap, is at a cost of $60. We'll tell you that activity cost per path. And if you do the maths and come up with a weighted average cost, we'll tell you that every time the process runs once, it costs you $126 to get a result of that process. If this process runs, say, 10,000 times per annum, which is quite common, for example, in a financial administration area, then we know that the total cost of running this process annually is $1.26 million. Furthermore, we can tell you a few other metrics about your process as well. There is a cycle time, which says the process takes 4 hours to complete from start to finish. There is a work time, which is the labor effort requirements, and that might be only 20 minutes inside that 4 hours. And there is a full-time equivalent requirement, which says that there is 2.5 heads required to process that annualized volume in that process. Let's consider how we make improvements to this process. There's two areas we could look at. The first being the decisions that are being made in the process, and the second being the activities represented by these steps in that process map. If you look at the decisions firstly, it's evident looking at these numbers that if we could get more volume traveling through the yes decision, in other words following the one process path at the top, we could drop our cost from an average of $126 every time the process ran to something close to $100. So at the moment, if that's 60%, if we could get that up to 80% or even get rid of the decision altogether and get rid of all of the fruits of that decision as well, we could have all of the volume traveling through that path at an average of $100 every time it ran. That would mean a cost of $100. We would have $26 saved every time it ran at 10,000 times annually, which would give us a saving of $260,000. Examples of that sort of decision, well, it depends what the process is, but in finance that could be coding of invoices correct, yes, no. In a warehouse it could be, is stock available to pick, yes, no. Or for example in a purchasing process that could be, do we pay for this particular purchase using a purchase order or a credit card, which is a lot cheaper. So those are some examples of that decision. So now we've removed the decision from the process and the work travels along one path only. The second area to consider are some of these activities. Let's say, for argument's sake, that these two were very labour intensive. If there was a way of providing some automation support, some sort of upgrade to a system or providing a better system that would help to execute those steps, we could provide a quicker way to get the work done through that path one even more. So we might be able to drop that particular cost down to, say, $80. That's a further $20 every time the process ran, or a combined saving of $46 every time the process ran at 10,000 times per annum, gives us now a total saving of $460,000. This is a particularly quick process. We use a modelling tool which takes us about a day to come up with the baseline metrics and about another day to redesign that process and put together a business case for change. And that's a pretty quick result in the market.